Welcome back to the Dungeon Master's Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game. With every conversation, we hope to inspire as many as possible to keep on Dungeon Mastering.
And I'm one of your hosts, DM Neal, aka Joke Maniac. And today we have a special guest, Alberto Bonilla, who you may have seen on your small screen, or on the stage, or behind the scenes. We'll link his IMDb and you can figure that out for yourself. But we're going to be talking about adding some emotionally impactful moments to your games and some of the tactics that you can use to make that happen. But with that out of the way, let's head to the meat.
I'm starving. We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
Why can't we have some meat?
The flat meat's back on the menu, boys.
So today for the meat, we have a very special guest. I am very excited. Before we recorded, I changed it. We are very excited. We have Alberto Bonilla, director, actor, acting coach, and avid D&D player and DM. Alberto, thanks for coming on.
I am so pumped to be here, guys. Thank you for having me.
It's always nice when the guests come to us as opposed to us having to go out and find the guests, which is what happened here. Yeah.
Well, I've been listening to you guys for a while, and I'm just listening. I'm like, God, I really want to talk to these guys about my ideas and thoughts. And then I was like, I'll just shoot them an email. I mean, if the worst thing you do is say no, but you guys said yes.
We did. So that's encouragement out there to
Yeah.
everybody. Maybe it's not coming on this show, but maybe it's something else. Go out and shoot your shot. You never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
As we always do, we start with a little bit of an interview section. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself that you think our listeners would be interested in knowing?
So I grew up in Arizona. I've been playing D&D since I remember my brother running the first Dungeons and Dragons, where when you rolled your stats, you rolled them in the order, and that's what you put them in. It was like that old school D&D. And then I fell off the board game at 3.5. Then it was kind of went away. Grew up in Arizona, came out here to the East Coast for grad school for acting. Went to Rutgers, got my MFA there. Been in New York since 2000. Been teaching acting and film acting specifically for almost 25 years. I've taught and done workshops in London and Edinburgh, New York, California, all over. Yeah. And then a while ago, I'd say pre-COVID, maybe 6 years beforehand, a friend of mine was saying, hey, we're going to this place and they're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Have you ever played that? And I was like, oh my God, yes. And then it was rediscovering your best friend and 5e and everything. It was so much easier to play. Certain things were so much easier to play. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. And then we had our group. And we were at Hex & Co. down here in New York, and we found this group, and we've been playing D&D since pre-COVID. I think we've been going on 7 years. Every week we play D&D and Avid, and then I got back into DMing and all of that, and really applying a lot of the stuff that I do for acting into my DMing and also specifically directing. And it's just I love this game so much. I drive my wife crazy with the amount of dice I buy, but yeah.
Hey. Yeah. I was saying, don't we all? And then I think of the laundry list of things that I probably drive my wife crazy with that I obtain. Because some of it I don't buy. And so obtain is probably a better word. But
inherit. You could use inherit as well.
Yes. Oh, that actually happened.
You inherited dice?
Oh, yeah.
No, I did not inherit dice. So there's a town nearby where a lot of people go to retire. There is a natural occurrence when it's a town that a lot of people go to retire because that means that is a lot of people then pass away. Sure. A friend lives in that town, and what his wife likes to do is go to estate sales. So at the estate sale is a stack of D&D stuff that is tucked away behind where they're selling everything. Because in the mind of the person doing the estate sale, they think this is valuable and I don't actually want to sell it in the estate sale. I want to take it later and sell it on eBay. But my friend notices it and says, hey, I'd like to buy that. Because I know, in his mind says, I know someone that needs this. And so he proceeds to say, no, I'm going to buy that right now, and proceeds to buy this stack of second edition material that person had that this is this person's, buys it and just brings it to me. So I literally inherit this guy's set of second edition material that has things that are highlighted and notes written in it and all these things. And like, I have a copy of the second edition DMG that I ended up gifting to someone else because I genuinely cherished the one I now have so much more because it has literally, he wrote in Dwarven runes, like a message.
Oh, no way.
In the front of it. And like all these things are highlighted. Whoever this person was did not like caster classes because none of it's highlighted. None of it at all. If they were casting spells, not interested. Zero highlights of the book.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
So I genuinely
awesome.
inherited someone's D&D collection.
But what a beautiful gift to get that from somebody, you know? That's almost like literally in-game finding, you know, a scroll that hasn't been used by somebody, or like, it's just, it's so in the game.
Well, and and it is this weird existential feeling to think that someone 40 years ago had just as much fun as I have today, like with my own children or my own friends playing D&D, and like the memories that book holds.
But I think that's the magic of the game.
Yeah.
That's the magic of the game. I mean, it's just, I tell, if I could, I would make all of my, if I was in charge of, like, I was the head of a department at an acting studio or at a place, at an arts institution, I would actually require a course on D&D, because so many of the things that are fundamental, especially me as a director, that happen in Dungeons and Dragons, in the game itself, even the structure, are so great for actors to learn and to express themselves and to discover and to play truthful. And also just the memories and the common language. It's, I don't know, the D&D community is, the only thing I can compare it to is if you worked at a really great theater regionally and you've been there and you know the people. And then if somebody else has worked at that theater, there's a common language and a shorthand and like a shared camaraderie that comes about from this game. And it's just incredible. It's just even just this past week. So they just opened up a new coffee shop. So, well, not new. It's like a year old, right across from my building. And I'm in there and there's a guy that's sitting there and his shirt was something like, "May every roll be a crit." And I was like, "Dude, you're a D&D player." He's like, "Yeah." And he had literally just moved like a week and a half ago. And then the guy behind the bar, making the barista, making the stuff, his name's Sam. He's like, "I play D&D too." And I'm like, "Well, do they do a D&D game night here at this coffee shop?" Like, "No." So now we're starting one.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like we don't know each other, but the game just made us go, "Oh, you're our people. You're our kind. You love to play in imagination. You really love storytelling. You want to experience something else." And it's infectious and I love it. So it's like the fifth game. But
I was going to say,
but I can't do it, man. It's just so fun.
So, tell us, Alberto, is there anything that you are currently working on, tabletop related or otherwise, that you want to tell us about?
Well, other than starting a new game night in New York City at a coffee shop, Hamilton Underground Coffee, put a plug for them. Really awesome coffee. They could do a great lavender latte. I have stuff that I can't talk about only because there's like an NDA or it's not like the contract hasn't been signed. But I will say that one thing is that I directed a film down in Florida that was really, really fun to do. A kind of a pulpy, fun, I don't want to say supernatural, but it's just really, really fun film that we're in the final edit, and I'm waiting to see the final edit. Tabula Rasa, which I hopefully will be able to like approve the edit, then we can go to colorization and then finish, any ADR, and then it'll start going to festivals. We're hoping the one we really want to go to is like Dubai or something like that. So we're really crossing my fingers for that. So it's just so fun. It was a fun project. I basically cast all my friends and we went down to Florida and played. Which is the best. Yeah. And then just recently, like acting wise, I was on an episode of SVU just recently, and I'm waiting for another film that I'm in that I can't talk about yet. So there's stuff down the pipeline. I'm like a bad rash. I show up every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, your IMDb page is full of interesting credits. So if people are interested, they can go check that out. Maybe we'll even throw it in the show notes so people can go see like, "Oh, I have seen him in this or that." Because it definitely was that for me.
Probably,
As soon as we got that email, I was like, "All right, I'm gonna see what I've seen him in."
It's funny because people will recognize me. It's very interesting because if people are like Marvel people, they'll be like, "Hey, weren't you that lawyer on Iron Fist?" But if they're like really heavy, like mob, like love got Goodfellas, Sopranos, I will be walking somewhere and somebody will yell the line that I said. Like in the mall, I'll be walking and they'll be like, "I didn't take the toilet paper," which is one of the lines I turn around and they're like, give me thumbs up. And I'm just like, okay, yeah. Yeah, that was me.
Oh, what an experience that must be.
It's fun.
So, as always, we have a surprise question, which is the best part is it's a surprise for two people because only one of us makes it up and the other one gets to be surprised. With all the roles that you've done, and it could be with directing or acting, like what do you feel like is the one that like D&D had influenced the most? Like what is like the one role where you're like, I'm basically just I'm just doing D&D right now.
Oh, 100%. When I directed Macbeth at the Secret Theater in New York, where I set it in like Stonehenge, Gaelic, Irish, I hired a magician to help to magic and throw fire and make things disappear and float. And I had one of my castmates was actually a trainer. And because we were doing it here in New York and I didn't want anybody to get injured, I did a lot of stunt choreography, a lot of fight choreography in it as well. I was really fortunate with that production because I actually also got published in Fight Builders magazine about what I did. And what we did is we did a boot camp of training so they could build their forearms so that nobody would get injured in that sense. And because I had a 15-person battle on stage and there was so much fighting that I couldn't have a set. So it was just a flat stage. And then I was like, okay, I know the ending fight is going to be this claymore versus the sickle, like this. And so I got this huge sickle, like a death sickle. And I was like, yeah. And then when it came, it was broken. And I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do? I was so upset. I contacted the people and they were like, we don't have another one, but I can send you another claymore. I'm like, great. So the claymores were so big because they were full size that the ending battle between Macduff and Macbeth, we would smooth out the blades because they get little nicks and stuff. We'd smooth out the blades. But the great thing about that was that it would put the fresh metal on. When they would fight, they would hit and sparks would fly. It looked like freaking Highlander. And so it was like, that was absolutely me living out my D&D like live with magic and everybody. And we didn't have a budget for costumes. So everyone was working out. So they had these little thin things on, but they looked great. And it was just, everybody looked sexy and like it was fun. And I was like, Excalibur was like a huge movie for me when I was growing up, like just watching that and the whole myth and ethos behind that. And so, yeah, definitely 100% Macbeth when I directed it at the Secret Theater. And it was so fun. I mean, I was literally just playing as a kid. I was like, we're going to play D&D tonight, but Shakespeare words are going to come out. So.
That's awesome. Awesome. Boy, Neal, this is a very specific question. The only time I have taken the stage to perform since I started playing D&D was like in my improv comedy class. So
nice. Good.
I guess that's the answer, but it had nothing to do with Dungeons and Dragons at all. It's just that I am now a person who has played it as opposed to like the play I was in high school. So I guess that's the answer. Not really a good one, but it is an answer.
Trying to think one of the things that people have a tendency to maybe not connect it as heavily as I do, just because I've had to be in so many business meeting settings, is the skills you obtain as a DM really function? Because it's the same. I end up sitting at the front of a table and there's a bunch of people that I need to make sure stay engaged the entire time. And what I started to realize as I started to advance into like more and more management was just like, oh, this is all the same stuff. It's like, okay, check the table again. This person is clearly not paying any attention. How am I going to re-engage this individual? Do I need to give them the spotlight? Is someone feeling like they're being left out? And I'm like, it's just the same stuff. The second you get into, and this is fun advice for anyone that's looking to advance their career into management. Here's a fun little fact. It's going to be more about you dealing with people than your job.
Yep.
That is the number one thing you're going to do as management is help people. And no one, I feel like that's not a thing you're going to find out or get talked to about until you get there. So, hey, I hope I help you, because you're going to end up being a therapist a little more than you ever expected. The number of people that I had come and cry in my office because that's what they needed at that time, and help them cope with the thing that was real that's outside of the job so that they could help do their actual job, in the same way that the D&D table can be an escape from the things that are going on in your real life. Sometimes that's what people use for work. So like there were all these things that as a DM was making me a better manager. And there was a struggle for a long time for me of like, this doesn't feel right, until it did. And it was like, oh no, this is okay. It is what it is. So I guess dungeon
So what you're
manager.
saying, Neal, is all those times you made me cry on this podcast. I'm not alone. It's just people that you're around. That's your effect. Okay.
Yes. That's why I edit the episodes, everyone.
There you go.
All right. So
There you go.
Alberto, you approached us with a very interesting idea for a topic here. And so let's jump into that now. Your topic idea was talking about how to create emotional impact in our games. And I feel like that is something that is I feel like it's a lot less covered in content about running games. For instance, there's a lot of content about rules, specifically a lot of content about giving everybody a chance to role play and, helping them fulfill whatever their goals are as a character. But I feel like at the same time, that is kind of the point of storytelling, and always has been the point of storytelling, is to convey emotion or to make people feel emotion. And so it's a fundamental building block of this medium.
Absolutely.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about why that is kind of at the forefront of your mind here today.
Well, I was listening to one of your, I don't remember which one it was, but it just kind of spurned. After I listened to it, I was thinking to myself, what are the similarities that I do as a director or as an acting teacher, and with DMing, and also playing D&D, and also when I'm teaching? And I think that there's some similarities. The first thing is that people are willingly coming together to experience and tell a story, because actors and directors are still storytellers. Now, they have a specific goal in mind and a script and a thing they're trying to achieve, which is slightly different than a DM does have a goal in mind. In other words, to get through the module, to get through the adventure, or to have just a good time and fun. But one of the things that we talk about in acting is usually most people define acting as truthful behavior under imaginary circumstances. Truthful behavior under imaginary circumstances. And if you take that into what a game would be, a lot of times you might hear a player say, I don't think my character would do that. I don't believe I would do that. And in a sense, what they're doing is the same kind of thing. They're trying to behave truthful under the imaginary circumstances that they have. So in a way, a dungeon master is part actor and part director, in the sense that you have to read the table and understand you're guiding a story, and you want to have an emotional, or what I would call a meaningful impact, because I think emotion is a byproduct of what something means. One of the things that I really wanted to talk about for DMs is whenever I look back at moments when I've either dungeon mastered or somebody else has dungeon mastered, and I walk away going either shaking because I'm still so impacted by the story that just happened, or I'm laughed so hard that I'm sitting there telling my wife about it, and I'm talking as if I was literally watching the mimic eat my friend and thinking it was funny, and I'm talking as if it was a real thing that happened. It has to do with what we call, or at least what I teach, which is known as the formula for emotional life. And in acting, the formula for emotional life is you have an imaginary circumstance. You mix in someone with meaning that has personal meaning. There is a doing, which would be known as an action, and there is a clear consequence. When all four of those things are happening for the actor, the byproduct is an emotional life. And that byproduct of emotional life could be like, okay, in this scene, I'm giving a speech about the death of my father, and I'm supposed to be very sarcastic. So me, the actor, I would go through and try to figure out what that formula is so that I could truthfully live out what that is. But for the dungeon master, that's already kind of inherent because you're already in an imaginary circumstance, right? And they have a character. And I think the key to start this as a DM is when a player tells you something means something to them, don't just take it like a plot point. It's actually a way to access them and bring about a commitment to their imagination, a commitment to their emotional life at the table. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's one of the interesting things is that how well it works on both sides of the screen.
Absolutely.
If we want to just use that as our we all do. It's the dividing line that we all establish. The other on both sides of the screen, because the whole time you're saying that, I'm thinking like, dang, I can make my NPCs a lot better if I start using this to like structure the way they are. Instead, it starts to make them feel less like cardboard cutouts of like, I are shopkeep. You need goods. I need gold.
Right.
And
it's
that's
very
fine.
transactional,
Like, it's
though.
not like it's the worst. Yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world, but like there's something to be said about the fact that if I do that, like it's like I'm treating that NPC as the mechanical table that's in the book, which can be fine. I'm not trying to put that aside, but if you want your players to be like, this is the shopkeep I'd love to come back to every time we come to town, but then I need more. They need an emotional life.
Absolutely.
They need something that they care about, because in the same way that like, if they come back, because once you establish that, if they come back to that store and that shopkeep isn't there, that's awesome.
Then, yeah. And then there's a meaning. I think, we're doing Icewind Dale right now, my group. And there's a character that was kind of supposed to be an NPC that wasn't really a major thing. And all of a sudden, all of us, for whatever reason, and I think because that formula started to kind of happen, locked in. And I have on our table, we have a mix of people who are actors and non-actors. And what I noticed was that even the non-actors are playing at a high level of imagination, just as much as the actors who have quote unquote been trained or went to school for that. And it usually comes about from that. So now this NPC we've been protecting them. We've been on track. Like they're now like another part. And I know our DM wants to kill off this NPC because it's like, oh my God. But because it has so much meaning for us now, it feels like when that NPC, whatever happens to that NPC, it's going to be hugely impactful to us. And we're all invested in that. And I think that sometimes, I think as DM, and I'm very guilty of this, especially if I'm homebrewed something and I really want to get to this room, where if the players are going and find meaning in something, you got to make sure that you don't just think of it like, oh, meaning that they're going to be a story hook and they're going to go in there, to understand that this is a way that you can get them so engaged and have real stakes that when you do kill them off or they win, that you'll see an impactful moment with these people, with your friends, with the players, with the characters.
Yeah, it goes back to something I know I've said a lot, but everything bears repeating because there's always the chance that no one has listened to any other episode except this one. So one of the things that is always important to me is that everyone needs to feel safe at the table.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean they need to feel good.
That's right.
So, and that feel like some people may hear that and have feelings about it. But the intent is that like, what's happening at the table is happening at the table. What's happening above the table is happening above the table. So in the game, things can be harrowing. They can be bad. They can be emotional. They can, like you said, because you could walk away from a session truly shaken by what happened, but you as a person didn't feel unsafe. Your character may have. And so like that, I think that's an important thing because once you start playing into those emotions, and I think the other important distinction that I can like see my earlier self and probably for the most part, still my current self to some degree is looking at those things as line items, not emotional beats, where seeing something that they've given me and be like, okay, write that down. And then like putting it in an outline, but not recognizing it. And not even like I've espoused as much as saying, look at their character sheet and see those things that they've put on there because that is the place that they get to decide things. I get to decide it. I technically get to decide everything else, but they chose to do those things. But I'm still not looking at it the way you're describing and like be like, okay, but why? Like, what are the reasons that they chose those things? What are the emotions behind those choices, or what are the emotions that I can elicit based on those choices?
I remember I ran a one shot. I had reskinned D&D to do like a Harry Potter one shot adventure. And one of the character's friends had passed away, was killed by a monster or what have you. And I said, what is it that you want to take with them as proof that you found them? And they said, I want to take her hair clip. And when the person said that, all of a sudden they just got filled with an emotional life. And so I knew, okay, when they go talk to the parents of that character to tell them what happened to the Hogwarts student, they would say, I knew, okay, when they talk, that hair clip's going to come back. I have no idea where that person went or what that means. And I think that when you talk about with trust with your table, there is and this is very similar to a director, there is an imaginary trust. And this is also for funny moments, just as much as it is for dramatic moments, that a player has with you as a DM that is kind of sacred in the sense that I'm willingly suspending my disbelief in my imagination to tell a story, but also to live out something that maybe I'm dealing with in life, or maybe that I don't have control of in my real life, but in this life, I'm going to slay my demons. I'm going to live out or I'm just going to be funny, or I'm going to be sexy, or I'm going to be, whatever it is. And when you are just very aware of that, what you can do is you can create moments, and that would it. And so what happened was when they got to that moment where they gave the hairpin back to the parent, like the table was silent, and just, it felt like it was a real thing happening. And these were not actors, and it was a one shot. And the person doing it was not that experienced with D&D, but it was beautiful. I was moved as a DM. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, like, do you want to sign up for my acting class? Because it'd be great. But I'm making a joke out of it, but it was really quite moving. And I think, and if I look back at acting, that's just endowing an object. Whenever you let a player pick an object and you let them be, what is the meaningful thing here? What did you find that has meaning? They will come up with something, and it might be in their conscious or subconscious that for whatever reason ties them. And now it's the player is just giving you as a gift as a DM. Okay, this object means something. On an adventure, something happens. You need them to go back into, they didn't get to the room you needed to. Guess what? The hairpin, you must have dropped it in the battle. Oh, now, do you know what I mean? Boom. Massiveness. They have to go back and
you've raised the stakes
because it has meaning.
Yeah,
absolutely. And another thing, I think that people sometimes, I find this whenever I'm playing as a player, and there are worse things than death in the imaginary world of Dungeons & Dragons. And if you can't engage a player with them losing hit points or anything like that, having things happen to people that they care about or NPCs they care about, it can be much more impactful. You might even get further with that in that way. In our Icewind Dale episode, we had a thing where there was a hag, and we were trying to decide whether to execute them or not because we weren't sure if they were remorseful. And for a full almost hour, the table became so passionately heated in a way that was just thrilling. And it was very smart of our DM Max to just sit back and still monitor that we were being safe, but allowing people to fully commit to what it is. In the same way, you can let people commit to shenanigans, because sometimes, sometimes we need that levity. And I think that it's really important to trust your player, but also make sure that you're aware. Like you said, you were talking earlier before about being a manager, and you see somebody over there is not having a good time or isn't engaged. That's just like a director. And when I'm directing a play, if I see somebody and they're not really engaged, as an audience member, you're only as strong as your weakest chain. That's it. But in D&D, it's the same thing. So how do you get them engaged? Bring them back in. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask, as far as like what you have found that works well in helping players who may not be incredibly comfortable with that kind of vulnerability or openness yet, what have you found is a good way to kind of get people to express themselves a little bit more or engage with the story on a more emotional level, as opposed to just, okay, let's go kill the next monster because that's that's the experience points and we want to level up and we want to get the next ability, like more than just
Absolutely.
a numbers game.
I think what I have found, and this is, I take this from acting when I'm working with a student that for whatever reason is closed off or has a shield, it usually stems from them wanting to get it right.
Yeah.
Or not wanting to mess up. How many times you've had a new player at the table and they don't want to ruin it for everybody, or they don't want to be the one that slows the game down, whatever. And I think that what I do is, if it's a mechanical thing, like if I know this new player doesn't know the mechanic, it's different if it's somebody who's very experienced, but if somebody doesn't know the mechanics, I tell them, just tell me what you want to do, and then we'll figure out what to roll. And if we can't figure out what to roll, we'll figure out what to do. Like, just, what do you want to do? Let them. And then whatever they say, when they're putting themselves out there, there's never a wrong answer. There's always just a consequence, good or bad. That's why I love when they say you can certainly try. In acting, I tell people there are things that are necessarily in a scene. There's 1,000 ways you can do a scene, but there's really only 3 ways an actor can do it, their version, beautifully and honed in core, like to really reveal themselves. And I think in D&D, when you have a player that is, and I'm talking again, the inexperienced one, the encouragement of letting them know that there are no mistakes, to allowing them room, and then also encouraging your other players to make mistakes, to celebrate when you roll a 1, to make it a meal, have it be, how do you fail? You slipped on the banana. How bad is it? Can you describe to me how you hit your head? And then everybody laughs. Now, with an experienced player, that is really, and I would equate this to an actor who's got like maybe Broadway credits and is now transferring over to film and TV. And they're not booking a lot of film and TV. So they're frustrated or something. And how do I get them to engage on a deeper level? Is I recognize where they're at and I try to find what has meaning for them. If getting lots of gold has meaning for them, then I'm not going to be, oh God, this player just wants to buy things. I don't judge that. I go, okay, what is that layer? What are they really trying to experience? What is it that they're really trying to say for their, is it really a thing about power? Is it that they want a better magic item? Like what is it that is in there? And oddly enough, I say the less you say and the more questions you ask is better. So for instance, what's a character that one of you guys has that has a small backstory or something?
I haven't played a character in so long.
I play
keep going, Neal.
Oh, good. I got you. Yeah, so I got
the DM dilemma. Yes.
So I have a play-by-post. Shout out DM Trish. I do a play-by-post, which I love. I have so many positives about how that works compared to at table. I play Shatterkai Rogue, who's also dipped into Warlock because the Raven Queen is awesome. But I also super didn't want to go with like the whole edgelord thing. So his take on death is like, I'm just to do whatever I want because when I die, I die. It's my time because the Raven Queen said so. I'm going to live my life to the fullest because when she takes me. Rather than like, ooh, I'm so broody. I'm like, no, I will do everything I want whenever I want to because she decides. I don't have to deal with it. That's not my problem.
Great. So if you were telling me that and we were in a battle and you were doing something, I know the Raven Queen has a lot of meaning for you.
Yes.
Right. So immediately something happens at the end and you find something and you could find an amulet, a part of an amulet. And I ask you, it looks like it's part of the Raven Queen, or there's a symbol on it that has something of the Raven Queen, but on the back, there's something you don't understand. What do you think it is? I have no idea where you're going. You could all of a sudden say, oh my God, I think it has, can I roll to see, is this about my death? And then I have you roll. And then I say, there's a number on it that's scratched off. And I think it is about your death, but it's a date. Now, all of a sudden, you're like, is this the date of my death? Is this like, what is this? Is it a date that I'm so like really listening by asking questions more than telling. I think a lot of DMs, especially if you've built an entire world of lore, You're so excited about your lore and you really want to, I this thing and there's this. And I think that sometimes what you should do is the lore only matters to a character as it pertains to their story. In the reality of it, if for emotional impact, I'm not saying for gameplay, emotional impact, it only matters to them through the story. So whenever you can weave in for them and make it pertinent to them, you can still keep them on the path. And by engaging a player that really knows the mechanics, that really does that, and they tell you something, don't just take it lightly. Take notes. We always, the DM preps a ton and has all these notes about that. But during the game, you should also be taking notes of what matters to somebody. I had another table I was working with, and anytime it got to something serious, they all laughed. They would make jokes, they would laugh. And I thought, okay, not if that's what this table needs, if what this is they're laughing for levity because that's how they're dealing with the stress, I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm going to lean into it. And what I found was when I leaned into it, when it did get to a dramatic moment that they cared about, it was 10 times more impactful. And it surprised me. And I think that everybody coming to the table, they're like actors. They all there because they want to be there. There's an old saying, nobody sets out to make a bad movie. Even the DP, he may think the script is just awful and maybe trying to push in. And he's like, oh my God, this is so difficult for me to do. But they're going to do their best. In the same way at a table, if you're playing and the DM is not that great or not your style of DMing, you're still there. You still want to play. In the same way with your characters, with your friends or the people on the table, they all want to do well in their imaginary world. And so if you first accept that and things aren't going right, nothing says that you can't ask a question about what means something, and they will tell you, and then jump off from there.
Yeah. I'm currently running a Star Wars 5e game for my home group. And
I'm dying to play some Star
really
Wars.
Fun. It's been fun I chose to set it way back in the Old Republic, so I didn't have to worry about a bunch of specific lore, right? It's more open. But I tried to do this where I had everyone build more robust, interesting backstories, and then that gives me a chance to do what you're describing, ask them questions in game. Okay, your sister is calling you. How does that make you feel when you haven't talked to her in months and you left on bad terms? That kind of stuff. It gives them a chance to kind of express and be vulnerable to everybody else and add those emotional layers that you're kind of describing. Giving them a chance to engage and to create that emotional reaction even for themselves. Yeah, and it's been super effective and really fun so far. I feel like everyone is more engaged in their characters than they have been in the past because, not that we didn't have a lot of fun, but I feel like that extra layer has kind of been reinforced because I was more intentional about it as I was setting up the game.
Absolutely. And I think that even in a funny game, or something that you're doing it's shenanigans. I did an Ocean's 11 one shot, and I threw in a mechanic where I would allow them to do a flashback. They got 2 flashbacks, right, where they would basically be confronted on something, and as long as they could talk their way out or just tell me the flashback, the guard shows up and it's we flashback. The guard and I were in a soccer team together back in the day or whatever.
Yeah.
And he owes me a favor. And then I would have him roll a d20, and it would be okay, really low. It turns out bad. They actually hate you. Really high. They love you, and they give you the key to get in the door. Whatever.
Yeah.
Anything that you can do to engage them in that way is so fun. Speaking about, I think that technology, while it helps us, I think it also hurts us. I really hate when people have phones on their table, and more importantly, as a DM, if I'm not looking at you when you're talking to me and telling me your story or whatever, unless I'm looking at a sheet or trying to find where the freaking stat block is for the monster. But but one way to just really up it is when somebody's talking to you about something that's important to them, the character, simply looking at them and connecting with them just that way. You may be thinking, I don't know what the heck to do next. But if you're just really looking at them, the connection that begins to happen, it's just on a human level. The entire planet, from the instant we're born, we observe behavior. It's literally what we do. We pop out before we understand cognitive thought. A baby stares at you. This is why across the world, babies look at people's mouths. They don't look at their face, they look at their mouths. You observe behavior. So like you've spent however many years on this planet observing behavior. So when somebody's sharing something that has meaning, even if they're not looking at you, if you're looking at them, the other players see that. And they recognize that this person, what they're saying is important. Because I think what happens sometimes is we get so lost in, and I'm guilty of this too, with the stats, the numbers, initiative, all that. If you just take a moment and really look and connect, you can silence a table or just pull everybody's attention in a way, because we're programmed that way. Like we're literally programmed that way. When you're talking to your friend and they look away, you start to go, hey, dude, what's up? What's going on? So even just on a base level, on an acting level, like just look at them.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we're all bad at it. I'll admit it just as much as anybody else that like, it's easy to get distracted with everything that's going on.
Absolutely.
And it, depending on who, and it all boils down sometimes to just whose house are you at and how do they conduct.
No, really?
No, I'm just
the
being
dog's
honest,
coming
like,
over. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dog comes over
Yeah.
and is really cute or whatever.
Yeah.
Or the phone rings. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's kids. Are there someone that, are there other people in the house? Are there, XYZ? Are you having food come over? Is it football season and we're super distracted?
Yeah. Is your brother watching Supercross on his phone? Justin.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Nice. Yeah. but it's one of those things. It's like, but I recognize in the last session I had at my home table, someone new was added to the table, which doesn't happen often with my personal table, because longtime listeners know. Well, you'll know, you listen. But my table is the people that brought me into it in second edition, some 20 years ago, and now they're adult sons. So like our turnover is real low. So it's actually one guy's 13-year-old granddaughter just joined the table. And so my engagement for her is probably at the level it kind of should be for everybody, because I'm focused on the idea that like she hasn't played as much.
Yeah.
She needs the attention, but then it's making me reassess like, well, no, everyone needs that attention all the time to a degree. Varying degrees, because no, not necessarily, because I'm needing to guide her in a different way, because I need to establish certain things of like you're saying, like, no, that's totally, you're not going to mess up. Don't worry about it. It's totally fine. Any mistake you make, don't worry. We can make all the numbers will be fine by the end of all of this. And it's a push and pull too, because like on the one hand, D&D Beyond has been great because like I can see all the roles. I can see all the things. I can see all your passives. I can see all the back end. I can just go do things. I can just add the magic item to your inventory, which I've literally done sometimes where I'm like, well, just go look in your inventory. Oh, it's this. And so like or I can add notes to someone's character sheet, and like,
Totally.
So there are all the positives, but you're also now staring at your phone or your laptop.
Yep.
And then you just have access to the entirety of the World Wide Web. So, so I definitely get it, but yeah, it is interesting. And I think it's like to couple with that, try and find the tools that make the game easier for you. That's the thing that gives you the freedom to be able to focus on the players.
Absolutely.
Because one of the things I do is I have little plastic cards that go on top of my DM screen for initiatives, which I've also realized helps with the thing that bothers me the most. Dear players, you don't know how much this bothers me. And then
be prepared when your turn comes up.
You're about to find out right now. So everybody roll for initiative. Why are you all saying it at the same time? How in the world do you think that's going to help me? It's one of the most annoying things that players do for me on a personal level. I'm like, it needs to go in order. I'm trying to write it from the highest number to the lowest number. And you all, 6 of you, just shouted out a number. I barely heard the 6 numbers and I can't tell who said what.
Neal, I don't know if you do this or if you've already implemented this, but for everybody else listening, this is how you solve it. You do the old Matthew Mercer trick. You say, who got above 20? Then you get a small smattering.
Oh, okay.
Then you say 15 to 20. Who's in that window?
I do that. It doesn't help me.
10 to 15.
No,
5 to 10. That's how I do it.
And then you get the one person who's like, oh, I had 17. No. You think, no.
I don't know. My players must be well trained at this point.
You get a little acrylic thing and a dry erase marker, And then I can just ask anybody in any order, and then I can just reorder them on the top of my Dungeon Master screen, and I don't have any problems ever again.
You give them all their card, and they have to write down what they got and order it themselves while you're, preparing your stat blocks or whatever. Anyway, there's a few different ways to solve that for sure, but it is a problem.
But it's also to think about, like, this is also one of the reasons that 5th edition moves towards standardized things.
Right.
It's why it says 5 next to damage instead of the 1d8 plus, don't make me do the math, 1d8 plus 1.
Yeah.
That's the proper math, by the way. Or it's like, this is what this is. This is what their passive is. This is what their, and another thing that Celeste, has suggested is their initiative is 10 plus their dexterity score. Done. I'm not rolling. And so that's where they are at initiative, because that's how fast they are. Done. Over it. And that, just put them in, move on. And so, like, you start to figure out these quick hit tools to increase that emotional life, because those numbers, they can be whatever they're going to be, because everyone's going to start rolling dice. So those little bits on the outside edge, they just let them be standard. It doesn't, like, at the end of the day, you already have enough randomness going on, because everyone's going to be throwing dice throughout the whole combat, throughout every social encounter, throughout everything, and inevitably get a 1 when you don't want it and a 20 when you don't want it. So, like, don't worry, the randomness, the RNG will show up. But so, like, all those spaces and places that you can just lock it in so that you have more time to focus on the people rather than the numbers.
Well, like you said, I think that you're doing the right thing in being, and I would even say being present with them, not necessarily giving them more attention, but just being present with the person. And the other thing I would say is also, you start to get to know your players well. And if you think that, hey, I have an idea, or to push the story into kind of a deeper, darker, or funnier, I encourage you to ask them, hey, do you feel safe if we do this? Or, like, just be very open about that. And in the same way as a director, or when I'm teaching somebody, is before I work with somebody on camera, if they're not getting to the emotional life that they need to get to, because I can tell what they've crafted, what they've worked out for themselves just isn't hitting them, or they have done it, they're just not allowing it to affect them, which is a separate thing with an actor. Then I will tell them, I will say, hey, do you feel safe if we go further? Do you feel safe you can go further? And if they say no, I respect that boundary.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Then let's find another way. I think it's the same thing in with your players, especially. I think it works really great with, I mean, you kind of know this in a table. If you've known these people a lot longer, you know how far you can push it, which is kind of a wonderful thing. It's different when you're doing a one shot, or if you have a new player coming in and they're kind of getting melded in. But when you start to also know those limitations, and then you give them because sometimes it's not just about you pushing it, is letting them know, hey, you have the freedom to go dark or light as far as you want if you feel safe. And this doesn't necessarily mean dark as in like evil or anything like that. The example I think of is we had this one new player that joined our home game, and they'd been playing for, I don't even know, maybe like a year or so. And they had created this wonderful character, and the character was Nilu, and this young little girl had been through all this stuff and was looking for her parents. And we got to a point where we found her parents, and the regular D&D player would be like, okay, I'm not going to go with my parents. I'm going to continue on with the journey. But the table was so safe that the character, the Eric who was playing, was so probably one of the most best endings to a character I'd ever seen in D&D, was like, no, I think I'm going to go with my parents. And the session turned into saying goodbye to a character, not because they died, not because of something, just they achieved their objective. And we're like crying and teared up. And we're totally moved by really genuinely saying goodbye to a fictional character that we had spent time with. And it was, to me, it's my favorite ending to a character I've ever experienced, because it wasn't an actor. It was somebody who was newer to D&D, but they felt safe enough to be like, you know what? I think this person can go. And that's what I mean by being safe, in the sense that I can now feel safe enough to say goodbye to friends in a D&D world. And of course, they came back with a new character. We love the new character and all that, but it was quite moving and unexpected, completely unexpected by the table.
I love that. Sometimes the newer players are the ones, like you said, that don't have like that. Well, this is what happens now. Like we have to do the X and
Exactly.
then Y and then Z. Yeah, they think out of the box. They do what feels right. I like it.
Yeah, because it was like they weren't thinking like, well, I got to roll up a new character, or no, I haven't achieved it. They're just thinking, no, I think this person's ready to go. And it was a wonderful lesson. I mean, I've been playing D&D for years. It was a wonderful lesson, a reminder to me to not only just trust the player and trust your instinct, but also trust your imagination. To really trust your imagination and where it's leaning, and to allow that imagination to affect you so that you can have the best ride of the D&D game you're playing.
So we've talked a lot about like the best ways to go about doing this, but I want to now kind of talk about the other side of the coin and maybe ways that you found that are less effective. So are there any like pitfalls or, boundaries, ways that you found that don't work in helping people increase their emotional impact or increase the emotions that they're feeling? Anything that kind of is less effective?
One is probably the most important one, and this is actually as a director I deal with, if the room doesn't feel safe, no matter what you do, it's not going to happen. And feeling safe as in if you have a player that is interrupting in a negative way as opposed to a constructive way, because there are ways that you can interrupt or intercede in a game that actually are positive and if there is a personal thing happening at the table that you don't know about, but you're observing, you're just like, are these two players in an argument that has nothing to do with D&D or something? So the very first thing I would say is a safe environment. It's harder if the person doesn't feel safe because they're dealing with something that you don't know. For instance, I had many years ago, I had a student come in and they were acting, and they were so good with their homework and they were so alive and vivid that they were like the least person I would be worried about. They came in, they went up to do their scene, and it was the worst thing I'd ever seen. It was completely unprepared, and it was so out of character. I knew something else was wrong. And it was, the person was actually dealing with a very severe illness in their family that had just started to deteriorate very quickly. That is not a time to try to push somebody to act. That is a time where you say, what do you need from me? Our table, we've had, ups and downs and things happen to where, even me, where I would contact the DM and I'm like, I'm in a real sensitive place right now. So if I'm quieter and I'm just killing monsters, don't put the spotlight on me. So the one, safe place. The second thing, as a DM, I think that if you have an expectation of a response that you want from them, it's usually going to go the wrong way. In the same way, how when you're like, I've got this whole room planned, and they go, let's go around the back. And you're just like, okay, throw all that prep out. It's in the same way of that, is that if I want them to feel scared and I'm so clinging to that, then I'm probably going to force, and they're going to feel that on a level, and that won't work. As opposed to, how do you feel? Oh, you're feeling nervous? Let's double down on nervous. We might end up at scared. So a lot of times in acting, we call the term playing for emotion. Don't play for the emotion. Play for the meaning. Go for the meaning. If you focus as going on for what it means, they will find an appropriate emotion to attach onto it. Over talking would be the other one. Not letting the player talk. And at the same time, making sure, sounds crazy, but making sure you take a break.
Yeah, I'm the biggest proponent of this. And I think I'll overdo it. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. More frequent, shorter breaks.
Just short ones.
All the time.
Yeah.
Because especially if I'm at a con, I will do it on the hour, 5 to 10 minutes, every hour. Because I'm like, we're just sitting in here. These chairs are not amazing. This is a convention. They're just not, because they can't be, because you're buying chairs at volume. They not
never
great.
Are. No.
We can all just admit, they never are. They never are. You know what? They never will be, unless you're in unless you're doing D&D in a castle or something on that level. The chairs will not be great. let's all get up, let's walk around. Because I also feel like just being stagnant in that space enough, like you just start to get tired. That's just a natural bodily response.
And there's also something that happens also emotionally and for the actor in the sense of when they're working on a script is that most of the time when an actor's working on the script, it's the subconscious that's really going to mine and bring about the wonderful stuff. And if you're just at the table, you don't take a break, you don't allow time for the subconscious to work. So it's not bad that if a certain heightened thing happens or something really, a big moment happens, you don't have to push through. Take the break there. It's like a cliffhanger. And then when people are walking away and they're talking and laughing or checking their phone, whatever, you're allowing time for the subconscious to also process in a way that maybe they won't understand. You're not going to lose tension. What you're actually going to do is allow the actor / player to process subconsciously what it means for them. And when they come back to the table fresh, they're going to feel it more.
Okay. So I feel like this is the perfect segue. We're also starting to get around to time. So one of the things that we love to do is we love to give people homework, which is, it's really just a fun thing to say, oh, homework, where we ask people to read, watch, just engage with some kind of content that we think would be helpful for the topic at hand. I almost feel like there's just anything could fall into the category, like any good piece of media. But is there anything that like the three of us can think of specifically that would gear towards this topic?
I mean, because I actually thought, like, I don't know if I would say necessarily the homework to watch or read. Well, first, your guys' podcast is amazing. So I would listen to some back ones of that if you haven't caught up on that, for sure, 100%. But I think as for homework, I would say if you're DMing a table, next time you DM at the table, ask more questions and write down what they say and reflect on that, because they will guide you. They will tell you how serious. They will, if a character dies, what are you hoping? Instead of saying, what do I find? Say, what are you hoping to find? What are you hoping to find on this mage? Oh man, I'm really hoping to find the clue that this guy maybe knows my dad. Okay. Didn't think of that. They were just a robber. Like, really ask the questions and then write down. And then when you come back to the table, I would say, see if you can make more eye contact. See if you can be more present with them. And really, really, really just pay more attention. And I guarantee you something will change. Because we as humans, the way we're programmed, the way we are, and we interact with people is, I always tell my students that we live life in a close-up. All of the most important moments you've ever had have been face-to-face in a close-up. Whenever you've told somebody that you cared about them for the first time, which is why I love playing online, but there's nothing beats an in-person game. When you're there and you're smelling and you hear the dice roll, and when you're talking to them in an in-person game, it really is like a close-up. And if you're just really present with them, you don't have to be clever voices. You don't have to have like any of those things. But if you are really present, you'd be surprised how much more impact and how much more, for lack of a better word, control and power you as a DM exude over the table, and how much more they will trust you. And if I had said homework, find things about trust exercises, how to get them to trust you, and how do you trust them too? Because it goes both ways. It's not them trusting you. You got to trust that they're going to come with their imagination, that they want to play, that they're going to be excited about it.
The most important thing about a trust fall is that the person knows which way they're falling. So, it's super important. Didn't know it was important until I watched the person fall the wrong direction. It's very important. It's going to ruin the trust. So the in-person thing is a physical, biological level. I watched a thing recently where they took, also the free time that people have and the amount of money that they do on certain research projects is always baffling to me, but they took sweat from 2 people, and basically it was sweat from someone that had been exercising very hard and sweat from someone that had been afraid. And they were doing blind studies, and basically gross, but they were having people smell the
Sure.
sweat. And so sight unseen, they have no idea what this has come from. They don't see the other person. The people that were smelling sweat from the person that was afraid were starting to become afraid.
Absolutely.
And the sweat that they were smelling from the person that had been exercising elicited no response. And so like the fact that like, even to say like, if you're in the presence of someone, like that is the level of response that we as just genuinely social creatures can have on each other.
Absolutely.
Like, and that's the difference between being in person with someone opposed to being online. And it's not to throw any shade at online, because online, in the same episode, I have already sung the praises of how great I think Play by Post is, and like all the things that affords, and all the things that technology affords.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I think I'm at the point where like hybrid is probably my greatest, the thing I say the most about. There's something to be said about leveraging technology and having in person. Like that is the best middle ground for me personally. I don't think all of one or all of the other at this point is the right answer, because why just saying get rid of technology is foolish. It's there. We can't get away from it.
Yeah, it's not real. And you can also be very present and put your attention on people online as well. You can really just listen and be there. You can in person. It's great, but also you can do it, right there is when somebody's talking, really just put your attention on them, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
One of the things I would say is that if there's something that you have engaged with previously, if it's a movie, if it's a show, if it's I don't necessarily want to say a particular life event, because that's not necessarily the road I want to suggest for you, dear listener, to walk down. You can do that if you so choose. But if there's like a piece of media that you engage with that has elicited like some sort of emotional response to you, try and
That's
figure out
exactly what I was going to say.
What is the reason?
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, watch movies
Mm-hmm.
that make you feel triumphant, like your favorite sports flick. Watch movies that make you cry because they're so meaningful, like, your Pixar animated show about a kid, going to the afterlife. Jeez, Coco wrecked me.
Oh, it wrecked me too. I love Coco. Oh my! And then the first 10 minutes of Up, I had to pause it because I had to get another box of Kleenex. It was so much.
They're
But all
not
those
telling you to
stories, they
feel that
engage
way,
you
though.
because they
To your
need
point,
to.
Alberto, right?
No,
like it's
no.
it's
They're not.
It's
It's
the
the
meaning.
meaning.
Yes, I love
the meaning.
that you pinpointed that to me, because I feel like I have fallen in the trap of trying to elicit an emotion from people instead of, pointing at the meaning and then hoping that they kind of get there. So
Yeah, if there was one thing, if somebody took my class or as an actor, as a director, I would say, there's a saying I say, if you chase emotion, you're going to end up in Indication City, which no actor wants to indicate. But if you chase meaning, you will arrive at many different emotions. You will arrive at many different places, and it'll be varied, and it'll be colorful, and it'll be different. So as a DM, I would say, if you chase meaning and the players will give you that, and if you help them with that, if they don't know what it is, but they get a kernel of it, and you foster meaning, what you will do is you will foster investment in your game, because they will want to have that feeling. They will want to solve that thing. They will want to be there, not just to get away from their job or whatever, but because since people have been I believe since people have been around campfires, there's been D&D, a form of it.
Yeah.
I believe that. I'm wacky. I'm wacky.
no,
like that.
I feel like it's
But I think that
indisputable, really.
I really do.
I will easily say that Deborah Ann Wall and John Barenthal proved that theory instantaneously. Because if you have there, you know what? There's my change. There's my answer. That is the perfect clip to encapsulate the person that says, I'd like to try D&D, and a person taking them up on the offer immediately and proving that it's just that easy. Because he says, also, this is the Punisher, which is amazing. He says, well, I'd love to try D&D. And she says, okay, let's do it. And right there, it's just two people recording a podcast, sitting in two seemingly uncomfortable chairs as always. But like at that point, she just takes him to task and says, okay, you're this character. What do you do? And like, that's it. It's right then. It's right there. It's two people telling a story together. So yeah, I agree. As soon as campfires existed, because you think of the mythology that exists from the earliest times.
Absolutely.
Like, like the Scottish, this is also me figuring out random facts. The Scottish national animal is the unicorn. That's not real. That's not a real animal. It's our national animal.
Yeah.
Just like the Welsh dragon.
Just to say,
anyway.
Yeah. That's not real.
Yeah.
So one of the other super important questions we have is where can people go on this World Wide Web to make sure they're watching everything you're doing?
I'm really easy to find, unfortunately. It's just like albertobonilla.com. Basically, it's like all the stuff I've been in. That's my acting website. You can also literally Google me and I pop up as directing, and hopefully next year I'll be directing something. I'm just waiting for the actual contract, and then I'll be like hooting and tooting about that. So, and then, I'm like I said, I pop up everywhere. I pop up everywhere.
Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah. We'll have links to the show notes. Definitely into the IMDb. It's a treat. It's a treat, the diversity of that list. So, and I will say with the utmost confidence, we will absolutely have you back on. I don't know what for or why, but you'll be back 100%.
I would love to be back. I have other things about acting that would pertain that we didn't get to.
I'm sure.
But can I tell you guys, thank you so much for having me. And please, and also just from other DMs, like, thank you for putting stuff up to where, because you're right. Sometimes it feels so alone where you're like, I've got 2 days to prep. I have no idea what I'm going to do. Or we ended up in this, they decided to go to this carnival that I didn't even think they would. I just mentioned it as in passing. Now I got to craft a whole carnival. Like, it's just nice. Oh yeah. Just like, so this elf looks at you at the bar and sort of, well, what does the elf do? What does they look like? What are they wearing? And it's like, oh God, elf. I don't know. Their name is Joey. Joey the elf is now 10 months in, part of the party. So it's just really nice to have something that's for the DMs. It's also for players, but that's really nice to just know, you're not alone. You're not alone.
We just want to thank Alberto again for coming on, spending some time with us and emotionally impacting our lives and hopefully yours as well. If you want to email us and tell us about the emotionally impacting moments you've had in your games, you can always do so at dungeonmasterblock@gmail.com. Of course, if you see fit and you want to leave a rating or review, you can head over to Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice and leave one of those, because it will always help us just a little bit more. You can head over to social media where we can usually be found at DMS_block. That's at DMsBlock, or you just search Dungeon Masters Block and we should show up. And as always, the Dungeon Masters Block is a proud member of the Block Party Podcast Network, where you can check out other shows like We're More Than Our D&D Characters, Dungeons and Dragons and Daughters, The Bad Venture Club, and more. And as always, thank you for listening to the Dungeon Masters Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game, the only person capable of playing God, killing characters, and lowering the egos of everyone else at the table. I'm DM Neal. Good night, good luck, and keep on dungeon mastering.
It's not inspiration, it's not wisdom, and it's bad advice.
If it's not emotional enough, you just think of all the childhood movies and just play those scenes. You know the ones. Like out of Fox and the Hound.
Goodbye.